Hello, it is January 18th as I'm recording this. Plato the dog is snoring away on the couch and Bobby Voltaire the cat is sleeping in Plato's dog bed because he can. Today's episode is all about my 2023 self-publishing data. I will be sharing with you some of my data on this podcast, mainly my library's data, and then the rest of the data, which includes the wheels that I get from Scribe Count, which is what I use to track my sales, and more details about my sales and how much I've sold on Amazon, my Kindle Vella bonus, and so on, will be available or is available on my paid newsletter. So I have a newsletter with Substack that's both free and paid. And the data that is not included in this episode is on the Substack. And the reason why is because I want that data behind the paywall. It's just, I just feel, I don't know, it's easier for me to share that data if it is behind a paywall. It's like I'm inviting you in my living room instead of having coffee in the den, if that makes sense. Also, it took me forever to put together, and so it's one way for me to have my time paid. So yeah, don't hesitate to become a free or paid subscriber. I will have the link in the episode description. Without further ado, so as I mentioned in my last episode, I made a profit in 2023. It's a low 5-figure profit, and I actually more than doubled my profit compared to 2022. So if next year, I want to make that clear, because if next year, so in 2024, this year actually, if I end up with an even bigger profit, which is the goal, or if one of my books hits it big, I want you all to remember that I am not an overnight success. I'm not. The data I'm about to share are huge for some and very low for others. But most importantly, I've been self-publishing since 2014. I have a backlist. I have a diversified income with bilingual books, a pen name, and the books I write under my real name. In terms of hours worked, I am between part-time and full-time. And last but not least, Kindle Vella has really worked for me. And that bonus is, well, it's not certain, and I don't know how long it's going to last. Plus, I have refocused some of my expenses. Thank you again to the chemical engineer for helping me with that. And when I mentioned refocus some of my expenses, I didn't go down the rabbit hole of learning everything I can about direct sales yet. And the reason why is because I was still building one platform. And if I was going to try to do direct sales, I think I wanted my platform to be a little bit more stable before I start doing more direct sales. And then I also reduced the amount of audiobooks that I'm producing because it takes me a while. And actually I have to double check, but based on some of my data, I have not recuperated yet all the money invested in audiobooks. So, talking to my husband about all of that and actually listening to his advice has been very helpful. He will also tell you that sometimes I hear that from another person. I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea, even though he just told me that 5 minutes ago. That happens. Not often, but it happens. In 2023, I published several books. I published steamy rom-coms, 2 of them. I published 2 books, part of a duet under my pen name, which are Angsty, Steamy, Forbidden Romance. I wrote many episodes on Kindle Vella. I had 1 translation in French, which is Once Upon a Christmas Eve. I republished 2 translations in Portuguese, A Summer Like No Other and Always Second Best. I have gotten most of my translations back from BabuCube, and I'm slowly republishing them after getting them edited again. I published 2 bilingual books, and in terms of audiobooks, I did have 3 with Google Play in French, which I would have narrated myself. I haven't done really any other ones. I also wrote more than 60 newsletters, published more than 100 videos across TikTok and Instagram, and ran dozens of Facebook ads. And toward the end of the year, I decided to refocus some of my budget towards my existing readers, which for me has been amazing because I actually really enjoy trying to make people smile. And it's easier when you already know your readers a little bit. When it comes to my audiobooks, something I did not mention because I just started at the end of the year, so it doesn't really count into this data, but I'm taking some of my audiobooks I had work on with Megan Carter, who is an amazing narrator. I'm taking those wide. And so that means I'm also compensating Megan for changing from royalty share to non-royalty share, but that's going to come more into an upcoming deep dive into my December income and expenses. Right now I'm looking back at 2023, and when it comes to 2023 I have to look at different dates because it depends on when you're actually getting paid. So for my white books, I mostly use Draft to Digital as an aggregator, but following a class with Erin Wright, I did move some of my books from Draft to Digital to be direct with Kobo and Barnes & Noble. I was already direct with Google. As I've mentioned, most of my profit in 2023 came from my Kindle Vella stories in the form of bonuses. And again, they may or may not continue, I don't know. And they have an algorithm, like the way they calculate the bonus. Amazon explains it, but it's not very clear what each component actually is weighted at. So it's hard to know exactly why I'm getting a certain bonus. I have an inkling a little bit, like depending on how much royalties I actually get for the month, I feel like my bonus is higher. It could also be the episode read. Again, I'm not gonna speculate. Now, if you're into data, so one piece of data that really makes me smile, it's seeing my books being picked up in libraries, and it's hard to tell which one has been picked up in library, except if they use Overdrive Libby. So I sold to the following libraries via Overdrive. Bayern Digital Consortium, it's in Germany. I guess it's Bayern Digital Consortium. Anyways, it's the digital consortium of Bayern. Maine, New Jersey, Libraries Tasmania in Australia, Westchester Library System, New York, Maebashi City Library in Japan, Contra Costa County Library in California, Sales Library Network in Massachusetts, Brooklyn Public Library in New York, Ocean State Libraries in Rhode Island, Sanford Public School Department in Maine, Delaware, Accelerate Learning Delaware, and Old Colony Library Network in Massachusetts. And how do royalties work with libraries? So my libraries are, like my books are available in different platforms for libraries. They're on Overdrive, Odilo, Biblioteca, Baker & Taylor, Hoopla, BorrowBox, and Palace Marketplace. And when it comes to royalties from libraries, there are different models. You can get paid one copy, one user. Others use cost per checkout. If I look at Most Eligible Scrooge, I priced it, the ebook for libraries, at $12.99. And for example, with Overdrive, if it's one copy, one user, I get $6.07. If it costs per checkout, it's 61 cents. Hoopla only does cost per checkout, and it's 49 cents. Others, like Biblioteca, is one copy, one user, $6.07. So my library's royalties for ebooks in 2023, well, it was not very high. It was $85.49. It is a 20% increase from my royalties in libraries in 2022. And I sold most of them via Biblioteca, Overdrive, and Hoopla. And in terms of geographical locations, mostly it was in the US, followed by Australia, Germany, Canada, and Japan. My top 5 ebooks in libraries are Un amour de pâtisserie, which is Sweets for Love in French, Sweets for Love, In diesem einen Sommer, A Summer Like No Other, which is a bilingual edition English-German, La fiancée sur la touche, which is the French version of The Leftover Bride, and Un amour en si mineur, which is the French version of Love in B minor. So again, do not hesitate if you want to have more of my data, and if you're interested, I think there's a 7-day trial that you can just, if you're going over on the Substack, you can do a 7-day trial, see if you like it, and you can also become a free subscriber and you get those analysis or parts of them, or I have free posts as well that you get directly into your inbox. No matter what you decide, know that I appreciate you listening to these episodes, and I hope it was interesting. And I would love to know if you're selling your ebooks in libraries, if you're wide. And my next goal is to get more of my print books in libraries. That's something I really want to work at next of this year in 2024, especially large print books. So that's something I want to look at. Probably not in this first quarter. Definitely not in this first quarter, because I'm also launching my Ream. I have a pen name book that's coming out, a French book that's coming out in February, and I'm working on 3 different books for my regular name. So yeah, definitely not in the first quarter, but maybe in the second quarter, depending on my schedule and the way I progress on my different projects. I am going to go walk Plato the dog now before it snows maybe again. And I want to say to all writers out there, happy writing, and to everyone, happy reading. Thanks again so much for listening.